All right, back on the Young Turks. Well, Gasland is a documentary on fracking, and it was really great. It's not my opinion. It's the opinion of the Academy Awards. They nominated it for an Academy Award, and the director of the movie is Josh Fox, and what he wanted to do was do a follow-up. So he did something very logical. He went to the House today. They were having a House subcommittee on energy and environment meeting, and it was about fracking, and it was in the Rayburn building, so he goes down there to tape it. And the Republicans,
within my First Amendment rights,
had him arrested. They had him arrested. There are reports that up to 16 cops were sent to get him because he looks very dangerous. You saw it there, right? And it's a public hearing. Why on God's green earth are they arresting this guy? And Josh wrote in, quote, "I was arrested today for exercising my First Amendment rights to freedom of the press on Capitol Hill. I was not expecting to be arrested for practicing journalism." ABC News was also shut out of the hearing room. Apparently, the Republicans are desperate to hide something about their fracking policy. I want to bring in Zach Carter, who covered this for the Huffington Post. I've got a lot of questions for you, Zach. Fascinating story here. First of all, what are the rules on this kind of hearing? Couldn't the press normally cover a hearing like this?
You can just, as a citizen of the United States, show up and ask to be permitted to the hearing room, and they will seat you. What's unusual is that they were trying to film the hearing. People do this all the time. It's totally routine, and there are regulations that exist to prevent the hearing room from being totally swarmed and swamped with 94 cameras. But in this case, they were the only camera crew that was there at the time. There was a separate crew that showed up earlier that was also denied entrance. But there's only one camera there. So the idea that there's some great pressing need to protect the integrity of the hearing by denying the filming for public distribution of a public hearing by elected officials is a little bizarre.
Zach, the Republicans are saying, oh, well, technically you got to fill out some sort of paperwork. Is that right? And in your, covering this story, have you ever seen another reporter arrested for unlawful entry for not filling out paperwork at a public hearing?
This is what's outrageous about it. I mean, unlawful entry, there's no such thing as unlawful entry to a public hearing. It's a public hearing. That's what it means. Anybody can show up. So the grounds to arrest him are really silly. You can kind of conceive of how they might be able to stretch, like forcing him to shut down his camera or confiscating the camera, but actually arresting him and physically removing him from the hearing, I've never heard of. We talked to Congressman Brad Miller, who's the ranking Democrat on the panel. He was the chairman for several years. He said all the time people will show up without giving 24 hours notice, and the standard practice is to take down their names in case anything goes wrong so they can report them to whatever agency they claim to be representing. But provided they just don't get in the way of the hearing, it's no big deal. You let the press record the hearing. I've never heard of anybody being denied, much less being arrested.
Well, Zach, we've actually got someone who was in the room now. Representative Zoe Lofgren was there and can tell us what happened there. Why on God's green earth did they arrest this guy? Did they give you guys notice? What kind of notice did they give him? And what do you think their motivation behind it is?
Well, I guess they just don't understand the First Amendment. I mean, between SOPA a couple of weeks ago and arresting a reporter today, it says something about the Republicans. I don't think this can be defended in any way. We've uploaded the video of the arrest, and you can see that this was not a disruptive person. He just wanted to film. This happens all the time. And in fact, the Democrats said, well, if you're saying it's the rules, let's have a motion to waive the rules and go ahead and allow for the filming, and that was defeated on a party line vote. So the Republicans just don't want to be seen, but they don't understand that in this world today, you can run, but you can't hide. And I think that in a way, they've created a bigger story about their fracking policies than they would have had they not arrested this fellow.
Well, Representative, that's what I'm curious about. What are they trying to hide? What was going to happen in that committee hearing that they're so desperate for the public not to hear?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a public hearing, so it's not as if the public couldn't see. They're trying to attack the EPA and say that the EPA, the scientists there, are somehow political, and the Republican political party is not political. I mean, it's preposterous on its face. The Republicans tend to be very protective of the oil and gas industry, and Josh Fox did a sort of celebrated documentary called Gasland that really was very critical of the environmental damage and the hazards created by what the Republicans are defending. So I can only surmise that they didn't want that kind of criticism, and they thought they could stop the voices of criticism by arresting a reporter. I mean, it's astonishing.
So I want to bring Zach back in here because I'm curious about what the rest of the media's reaction is here. Because if you let them get away with it, believe me, they'll do it over and over and over again. That's a great way to hide what they're doing in all the different committee hearings. So has the rest of the press been outraged by this, Zach, or is it a muted reaction?
I think generally speaking, there used to be a saying: you don't lob bombs at people who buy ink by the barrel. We don't live in an ink world anymore, but it's just not a good idea to start arresting journalists because there are a lot of us, and we are paying attention.
Okay, and then finally, Congresswoman, I wanted to ask you, and you can talk about that as well, but I also wanted to ask you, what are the Democrats doing in response? How do you make sure that journalists are allowed into these meetings going forward?
Well, we don't have the majority. We made an effort to allow the press to film, and we were voted down. What I'm doing is making this known. I tweeted it, I Reddited it, I helped upload the video, because I really think, as the SOPA fight showed a few weeks ago, when an aroused American public speaks out, even people like the Republicans who don't always defend the First Amendment have to listen up. So it's not just what the Democrats are going to do, it's what are the American people going to say. And that's why I'm on with you right now.
Right, absolutely. And I want to thank Congresswoman Lofgren for joining us. I want to thank Zach Carter for joining us on this important issue. And tomorrow,